Welcome to the Oddschecker Grand National Preview. I'm joined by Andy Holding, Oddschecker's tipster, the man in form, profitable Cheltenham, and tipped up the winner of the Grand National 2 years ago in Rule the World for us, and is hopefully going to do it again. How are you doing, Andy?
Yep, good form, yeah, thank you.
And I've also got Harry Phillips here from Betfair Racing, and Harry is going to kick off this podcast and video by telling us a few of Betfair's specials they've got ahead of the big race.
Yeah, so we've got a few specials for the big one on Saturday that might be of interest. So a female jockey to ride the winner of the Grand National is a 10-1 shot. One of the Betfair ambassadors, Gordon Elliott or Paul Nicholls, to train the winner of the Grand National is 5-1. They should have 5 runners between them. Grand National winner to carry 11 stone or more is 5-4. Given this is a race that seems to be going towards classier horses in recent years, that might be of interest. And an Irish train winner of the Grand National is 13-8, which, given the soft ground, that may favour some of the Irish runners.
And given the general discrepancy between the class of Irish
and that as well, yeah.
Andy, any of those stand out to you as being interesting? 13-8, an Irish winner. Was it 5-4 to carry 11 stone or more?
Yeah, I think both of those are fair enough. Obviously, the Irish have got a very strong hand this year, haven't they? With Total Recall, Annabelle Fly, Tiger Roll, to name but 3. And a couple of the floaters, which I'm going to be talking about, Michele Conti being one of them, would obviously be an Irish train horse. That would make quite a bit of appeal. But also, there's some betting on who'll go off favourite as well.
Yeah, so there's betting on who the industry SP favourite will be for the big race. And Black Lion is a 9-4 shot, Total Recall 3-1, Annabelle Fly 11-4, and Tiger Roll 8-1.
Yeah, there always seems to be some gamble from left field that you sort of don't even quantify at this stage. A lot will depend on the ground, how the market will shape up on the Saturday. And of course, one or two of the big trade papers they end up tipping Tom Segal, etc. But based on what he did last year in pure form, the standout candidate for me would be Black Lion to be favourite. I think he'd be very, very popular on the day. I think if you run down the 1, 2, 3, 4 fantasy list that the trade papers and the tipsters tend to go for, you know, that there's usually about 10 of them, I think Black Lion will be virtually in every one. Because a lot of people think, well, he's almost certain to run his race, he's gone around the fences, grounds he's impervious to, and I think if he's ridden with a little bit more restraint this time, he's got to be there or thereabouts.
Quick, before we move on and talk about the horses in themselves, I do wonder with this, going back to the industry SP favourite, Tiger Roll at 11-4, a horse I'd be happy to take on, but you have to think that he'd have made a few friends at Cheltenham this year and the year before, and that weight of money of people who want to back the horse they know could go a fair crack. I mean, we've already seen him cut a fair amount in the last couple of days.
It's Tiger Roll?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've seen twice as many more bets on him than any other runner since we went non-runner, no bet. Obviously, that's largely off the back of that Cheltenham success, taking a very similar route to Cause of Causes. You know, I think his chance is obvious. He's 8-year-old. It seems to be going the right way. I guess my concern with him is he's quite small. He's quite diminutive, and he sort of jumps fairly low at his fences as well, which would probably clearly be a concern around here. I
think if you were told, 13 months ago, before last year's Cheltenham, that Tiger Roll would be 11-4 to go off favourite for the Grand National the year later, would have been laughed at. To quickly go through the runners then, and so Total Recall, 11-1 joint favourite with Annabelle Fly with most places. Annabelle Fly is available at 12-1. Betfair Sportsbook are top price on Tiger Roll, Black Lion and See You at midnight at 12-1, 12-1 and 16-1. The Last Samurai is 18-1 best price. Bay d'Azil, who's all blue on Oddschecker, best price 20-1. Manella Rocco 20-1. Michele Conti, the other one, who's blue on Oddschecker. That does mean that we've seen money. It means it's been cut in most places. 22-1 best price there. I Just Know 25s. Gold Present 28s. The Dutchman 33s, and then we get into the masses of horses at that 33-1 mark. A fair few of them, and this is where it becomes, or it looks, a bit of a lottery. So Andy, when you assess this race, this famous race where everyone in the whole country, for whatever reason, seems to stop and watch this famous horse race, how do you go about trying to find the winner?
Well, I think it's arguably not quite as difficult as it once was, because you had to factor in bad horses in the race that were obviously danger of bringing other better fancied horses down. The fences were a lot stiffer. You had more fallers. Nowadays, there tend to be less casualties, particularly going out into the second circuit as well. I think that's why there's been so many finishes of late. I do like betting the number of finishes, or have done over the years. I think what you find is because of the belly of the fence is a lot less compact as it used to be, and they used to have wooden stakes inside the fence, but now they're actually padded. So it means that when the course builders actually put the spruce back onto the fence, they tend to just sort of throw it back on, and the fences aren't so demanding on the second circuit. So it just becomes a basic exercise of horses that don't stay the trip and are pulled up, but they basically jump around. You hardly see any fallers on the second circuit. So you usually tend to get, 10, 12 fallers on the first circuit, and the last 3 or 4 years you've got like 25 upwards runners going out into the second circuit. So then it becomes a race and a question of who stays the trip the best rather than actual jumping prowess.
Is there an argument that almost makes it easy now, where you can look at this field, it's a very open race, and you can draw a line through a fair few of the field?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I say, I think jumping isn't quite as, yes, of course you need to jump, but it's not as relevant as what it used to be. And I think that's why there's so many horses now that can be factored in. And I think that's why in recent years we've had so many big price winners. Yes, there is a class angle to it as well, that the likes of Neptune, Collonge and several other high profile horses have won it from running in graded races. Rule the World, of course, was a great grade one, not grade one winner, but he ran in a lot of grade one races. So that sort of like the dynamics of the race have definitely changed. But yeah, you still need something that's going to get 4 mile too. And I don't think there's that many this year that you can put your hand on your heart and say that's guaranteed to get the trip. I think there's a lot at the front end of the market. You're very much in the dark, including Annabelle Fly, Total Recall. All these horses are proven over 3 miles, but very few that have actually gone beyond the 3 mile. A lot of these have got to run an extra mile. So you have got to consider that before you're having a bet.
And with your bookies hat on, to Betfair see the Grand National as being, is it a money spinner? Is it a race you classically do fairly well on?
It just depends who wins in the outcome, doesn't it? Obviously we want to get the horse like a Black Lion or whichever is going to be the horse that gets punted this year. We want to get that beat, but it's just entirely dependent on the result. Obviously it's a huge, or the biggest race of the year from a bookmaker's point of view. And the one for money, since we've got non-runner no bet, has been Tiger Roll. Interestingly, the two at bigger prices that have been quite well backed are I Just Know, which is currently a 25 to 1 shot on the Betfair Sportsbook. That was backed from as big as 100s earlier in the season. There's been a lot of each way money for that, and Captain Redbeard, who's been well supported over the last couple of weeks. And it's quite interesting, for some shrewd connections there. There'll be two that will definitely be cheering to get beat.
And as yourself, when you look in, as I know that you maybe don't look at the time figures and the like Andy does, but I know you like a bet, Harry.
Yeah.
How do you approach it?
Yeah. So I've had a good look at this race over the last few days, and I think I found the top 5. So I can either give you to them.
Perfect.
I can give you them in the order I think they're going to finish.
That'd be absolutely ideal. Yeah. We could go viral if you get this right. So.
Fine. This is one for your combination TriCast and the rest of it. So in 5th, if he gets in the race, Vintage Clouds.
Wow.
50 to 1.
Vintage Clouds at 50 to 1.
That's a good shout, that is. Yeah.
This is a horse that runs in snatches in its races. He can often get a little bit behind, but he is always staying on at the end of and at the death of the races. I genuinely think if this was a 6-mile race, he'd still be plodding on at the finish. So is he good enough to win it? I don't know. I definitely think he'll stay the trip in the soft ground, which is what you're going to need. He finished 3rd in the Ultima, staying on, finished 4th in the Welsh National this season again. He's generally running really well in some competitive handicaps. You can get 50 to 1 about this horse. I think he's 45th on the list, but if he gets in, I could see him running a very big race for connections that have won it previously, in Sue Smith. In 4th is a horse that I haven't really heard anyone talk about. It's a horse called Warrior's Tale. I think ultimately, sometimes people forget that, you are still looking for just a progressive and potentially well handicapped horse in a race like this, and people get very caught up on will it stay, etc. So this is one of those which easily the biggest doubt, and he's 50 to 1. So he's a big price. He's available at 60s on the Betfair exchange. This horse has been progressive this season, and he's put together solid back-to-back runs. Without a doubt, the big doubt is about whether he'll stay this trip. But he's an improving 9-year-old. He finished second to Gold Present at Newbury, who went on to boost that form, winning at Ascot earlier in the season. And he really should have won that race. It was a loose horse that was causing all sorts of carnage. It was horrible. I backed him that day. And then again, he finished second in the Sky Bet handicap chase, which again, he just hit the front a fraction too soon and got caught by Wakanda on the line. You know, and he's 50 to 1. I haven't heard him mentioned by anyone. There are clearly, I know there's major doubts that he'll stay, and he's clearly got to go and prove that. But as Andy said, a load of these horses have got to go and prove that. So, you know, at 50 to 1, it's a big price, and I'm happy to have him on side.
Before you get to your top three, it's interesting you say he's not been mentioned by anyone, because there will be an article going out on the Oddschecker site in the next couple of days where we've looked at the stats, we've broken down the trends, and both Vintage Clouds and Warrior's Tale are two of, I think, the three horses that come through those. So.
That's good. I haven't done that, but I'm glad to hear that they both rank highly in that respect.
So let's see if you can get the last one.
You know, interestingly, he's obviously been bought by Trevor Hemmings as well, who knows the time of day with, you know, and loves to win a national.
I think that's one of the trends.
3 times.
Yeah.
Is it? Well,
yeah.
There we go. You know, so I just think he could run a big race if he stays. He might not stay though. Okay, third, See You at Midnight at 16 to 1. This is a classy horse. He hasn't had an ideal preparation. They were obviously in a bit of a rush to get a run into him. He ran well enough at Newbury. He's 16 to 1. He's classy. He's been well supported. Finished third in the Scottish Grand National. I'd be very surprised if he didn't stay. You know, and I prefer him to some of the market leaders. Second, and this is pretty much the only one of the market leaders I'm quite keen on, is Annabelle Fly. Finished third in the Gold Cup. He obviously won the Paddy Power Chase extremely well earlier in the season, pretty much hacked up there. You know, he's an 8-year-old, he's improving. Obviously, he's got a big weight, but I don't actually think that's a disadvantage these days. In fact, it might actually be an advantage in some respects. And certainly the race seems to be won more often now by those types of horses. So I think at the top of the market, he is definitely the one that I prefer the most out of the ones in the top sort of 5 there. And then finally, the winner. For me this year, I hope it is Uccello Conti for Gordon Elliott. Now, I was at Gordon's yard yesterday morning doing some filming for Betfair, and he said he felt this horse was going under the radar, and it was absolutely flying at home. You know, he's been aimed at this race all year. He finished second in the Paddy Power Chase to Annabelle Fly, and obviously he's got a big swing in the weights this time round. He's run the race twice before, actually. He fell last year when he was travelling extremely well, and the year before that, when he was only an 8-year-old, he finished 6th, which was you know, a good run. So he's got form around the track. You know, I just think he's solid, and I think that if he can get round, he can run a big race. He's been aimed at it all season, so it's very much, you know, not an afterthought. And you know, Gordon, speaking to him yesterday, was sort of very keen on his chances.
So there you have it, the Grand National top 5 as revealed by Harry Phillips from Betfair. We've got Vintage Clouds 5th, Warrior's Tale 4th, See You at Midnight 3rd, Annabelle Fly 2nd, and Uccello Conti to win it, who is 20 to 1 best price. It's interesting, before we come to Andy, who I'm sure is going to either tear that apart or agree with some of what you say, Uccello Conti is all blue on Betfair, best price 22 to 1. But given what you said about Gordon, given the fact that I think the man to my left is about to say some nice things about the horse as well, I wouldn't be surprised if even at 20 to 1 didn't stick around for too much longer.
Yeah, he'd definitely be my top 4 shortlist as well, Uccello Conti. I backed him in the race to win a small house a few years ago, and I was a little bit disappointed with him actually. He finished 8th. He ran okay. He then went on to finish 2nd in the Beecher, and he was going very well last year, as Harry's already pointed out. Unfortunately, Daryl Jacob decided to be a bit greedy. He didn't need to do it really, but he went right down the well up the inside. I know the Beechers is not as big as what it used to be, but it'll still catch you out if you catch the top. And there's a horse that jumped right in front of him, and it kind of like short-sighted him a little bit. And he took off a little bit too soon, caught the top, and he ended up landing right in the like I said, the well of Beechers, very much like Pete Scudamore did many years ago on a horse called Strands of Gold. He would have saved ground. I think he would have jumped into around about 4th or 5th had he cleared the fence, but it wasn't to be. I just hope Daryl Jacob doesn't do the same thing again and go to make the same mistake and bring him out a little bit. your heart will be in your mouth going to beat his second time.
But, you know, I think that's a serious point as well, in the sense that he's been there. I think probably they all know that was probably a mistake, and actually that's an advantage having ridden him last year, and you can't see him
doing
that
again.
route again.
No. Well, I don't mind him going down the inn. I mean, it's the brave man's route, but when you come to beaches, you've got to give yourself a bit of room. You've got to sort of move out, then move across, and then jump it on the angle. He went straight down the middle, like literally right down the corner, and he was basically asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he unseated his rider. But you look at his form this year. You know, he finished second to Annabelle Fly, in arguably the strongest 3 mile bit of form in Ireland. I mean, General Principle was about 10th or 12th or something like that, and he went on to win the Irish National. Sam's run well out of it. There's been a whole host of horses, Thunder and Roses, a good strong race. The ground would have absolutely mucked his plans up last time out in the Thyestes. He doesn't like heavy ground. He'll go through it, but he just doesn't operate at the same level. So I think connections of him will be praying that they get a fairly dry week. You know, if it's good to soft in places, that'll be fine. If it goes sort of soft heavy, I must admit my enthusiasm will be slightly tempered.
Okay.
But he's definitely on my shortlist as we speak now.
Yeah.
Because of all the positives in his direction. Black Line's just got to be on the list. There's no doubt that this horse is going to run well. He's not overly big. He doesn't look your national type to look at as a specimen, but boy can he operate over these fences. He hasn't fallen. He's hardly made a mistake. He's got that cat-like, almost red rum-like fleet of foot in the boards when he comes to a fence. He's able to operate and get himself over from A to B really well. He definitely hit the front two soon last year. I think Noel Fahili will have that ringing in his ears. Or is it Sam Twiston-Dow's riding this year, is it? Instead of Noel?
As you go, have a look.
And just check that out for me. But whoever rides him basically will be mindful that if they're going well, just to hold on to him a little bit longer. I think Noel, who rode him last year, just went with him because he didn't really know whether he stayed or not. But of course,
Sam rides,
yeah. But he would have watched the tapes back, and you know it's a long way home. There, it's still a mile from home, and he up to that point he'd never raced beyond sort of like the 3 mile 2 mark. All his form would be 3:32. Yes, he stayed the trip, but obviously that energy which was expended at the hottest part of the race ended up taking its toll on him. Very similar to Hedgehunter. I don't know if you remember when Ruby rode Hedgehunter.
Yeah.
He hit the front two soon on him. He went back the next year and he waited as long as he dared, and then he took it up on the running. And I think Sam will ride Black Line exactly the same. He's had 3 runs this year, 1 round the fences which he bolted up in the Peacher Chase. So he's got his eye in again. Yes, he had a hard race last time out, but that's 59 days ago. Yeah. So it's been a long time to recover. I wouldn't be worried about the weight. I'll never look at the weights anyway for races like this. It's just how you jump in, whether you stay, whether you've got £2 higher than what you did in a normal park race. It's a lot of nonsense. And the other two I'd mention. Annabelle Fly is definitely another one on the list. He ran a brilliant race in the Gold Cup. I think the Gold Cup is the best piece of form coming into this year's race, time figure wise.
Yeah. I mean, as you mentioned on the other podcast, you know, the speed figures you've got for that race are really
off the
top.
chart. It was the best race of the festival, and he stayed on very strongly up the hill. He also stayed on very strongly when he won the Paddy Power from the back of the second last. You know, he was very, very strong. He left a good feel for dead that day. And obviously, Ricciello Conti tying up in that form in second. And Tony Martin looks as though he's prepared him perfectly. And the other one as well is similar to Rule the World is Alpha de Zabo.
Bit of a bigger price Alpha de Zabo, 40-1 best price.
40-1, yeah. He's a classy horse. He's a Grade 1 winner over hurdles. He's running loads of Grade 1 chases. His form's been a little bit checkered this season, albeit he has won. But you know, you look at some of the horses he's been running against. You know, they're proper Irish Grade 1 horses. Whether he will want genuine soft ground or not to get the 4 mile trip is open to question. I think that's why he's 40-50 to 1 shot. If it dried out and it was no worse than good to soft in places, I think he'd be a massive player because he's a big type and he's very similar to Rule the World. You look at Rule the World's form. Rule the World was 6th or 5th in the Irish National previously. Last year, Alpha de Zabo finished 8th, but he got badly hampered. So he's got a lot of symmetry to Rule the World, and Rule the World was 50-1. Or 33-1 on the morning of the race when nobody really even looked at him. But you've got to remember this is a genuine Grade 1 horse who's a big time operator. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if Vintage Clouds does get in it, he needs 5 to drop out. He'd be another one to seriously mark up here because he stays very well. He was 4th in the Welsh National. Softer the ground, the better for him. He doesn't really like Cheltenham. I think the fences don't really suit him around that inner track. But he ran really well to finish 3rd in the big Stain handicap there this year, despite 1 or 2 slight slow jumps. And the ground won't bother him either, so he's another one.
So the lads agree on Uccello, Conti and Vintage Clouds. Andy also has given us Annabelle Fly, Black Lion and Alpha des Obo. As I mentioned, there will be an article coming on site very shortly about the trends, and we've had a look at the trends of previous winners. Those will become evident, but it's good to say that the ones that we came out with, Vintage Clouds, you both agree on, Alpha des Obo, which Andy's given us, Final Nudge, which went unmentioned, I Just Know, which Harry said was being very popular with Betfair punters, Vicente, although there are doubts about his jumping, but Oddschecker ambassador Nick Schofield will ride, we think, if fingers crossed Vicente and Warrior's Tale. So it looks like between the three of us we've done okay, and there are a few bullets there to go into the Grand National with. Obviously the Grand National is the the race of the weekend and the one that a lot of people will watch, but it's amazing racing at Aintree from Thursday through to Saturday. I know Harry's going to be there all 3 days, so watch out for him if you are there. He'll be the bloke with with a beer on his head.
Avoid being none of those 5 just mentioned even plays.
And there's another podcast. So if you are listening to this, we have previewed 5 of the biggest races of the week. So make sure you listen to that as well. Before we finish here, I'm just going to come to each of these 2 experts side by next to me and ask them for their nap. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the Grand National or the other races we've covered, but it can be if they want it to be. Harry, coming to you first.
So my nap would be Balco de Flo in the Melling Chase. However, I'll give you one at a bigger price, which would be Lost in Translation in the Mersey Hurdle on the Saturday. So he's stepping up in trip to 2.5 miles. He's trained by Colin Tizard. He ran in the Supreme at the festival, and he bounced back from a frankly really bad run where he didn't go a yard at Haydock on bottomless ground in January. He finished 8 lengths behind Somerville Boy, and he was sort of staying on up the hill that day. He was actually really badly hampered by Somerville Boy at that mistake that he made at I think it was the second last. I just think he's really interesting stepping up in trip, and I just think the fact that he was hampered there, but yet still finished 8 lengths behind a horse who I think is very good in Somerville Boy, makes him of real interest. I really fancied him for the Betfair Hurdle, and he went to Haydock and ran a really poor race and never turned up, but he would have gone into that Betfair Hurdle rated 134, which, given his run in the Supreme, now makes me feel like he would have gone very close in the Betfair Hurdle. He's stepping up in trip. Colin Tizard's got a history of horses stepping up in trip at this meeting and romping home, including a certain Thistlecrack a couple of years ago. And I just think this is a good horse, and his true ability might have been slightly disguised by that getting sort of hampered by some little boy in the Supreme, and I just think he might run a big race at 20 to 1.
So interesting to see, looking at the Oddschecker grids, that Lost in Translation is blue with every bookie except for Betfair and Paddy Power. I wonder why that is, Harry.
There we go.
You've been, the Phillips million's been coming in for it. Looks a good race that as well with Black Op, a horse I know that Andy has a soft spot for at 13 to 8. And on the blind side, Mike Spence, the owner's son, was on our Cheltenham podcast before On the Blind Side was ruled out of the festival, and he was very convinced that On the Blind Side would give Sam Crow a decent race, and we all know what happened next with Sam Crow. Andy, anything to mention in that race, or should we go straight onto your nap?
Naps in that race.
Your nap's in the race?
Yeah, Black Op.
Black Op.
Yeah, look no further than Black Op. This is a seriously talented horse, Black Op. I don't think he really got the credit he deserved at Cheltenham when he finished second to Sam Crow. I think Sam Crow was brilliantly ridden that day by Jack Kennedy. He very much got first run on Black Op, who was just in behind the speed coming down the hill, but momentarily he got 3 or 4 lengths on Black Op, who was just in behind the 3 horses in front of him, and once he got pulled out, he stayed on very strongly up the hill. But I do think the Neptune this year, or the Ballymore, was a vintage race. The fact that Next Destination, who'd gone into the contest previously unbeaten for Willie Mullins and was his sole representative, couldn't go with these 2, tells you how good the race was, and he's a genuine Grade 1 horse. But doing my circuit time comparisons, from the first 2 days, because obviously they're on the same course. Sam Crow would have won the Champion Hurdle based on his circuit time. He would have beaten Bouvardere. So it just shows you how good Sam Crow is. And I'm a big advocate of Sam Crow running in next year's Champion Hurdle. I know there's 1 or 2 forums and debates, and the Spotlight guys in the Racing Post were all asked to, if Sam Crow was yours, what route would you go down? And I think Gigginsdown immediately thought, oh yeah, 2.5 mile, we'll go Gold Cup, we'll go LRSA next year, we'll step him up. But I think they've almost had a little bit of a rethink. I think the vibes are that Sam Crow might actually start out as a Champion Hurdle horse next year.
Really?
I'm getting the vibes and the feelings that could be the way that they'll go. They'll certainly give him a try. I think Punchestown will tell you which way they're thinking, because if he runs in the 2 miler there, then I think you need to be looking at Champion Hurdle prices for next season. But Black Op, like I say, was second to, let's say, the Champion Hurdler elect, or the horse that is going to set the world alight in the next 2 or 3 seasons. I also think Black Op not only will win this race and win it easily, but I think he's one of the best bets for next year's Cheltenham Festival in the RSA market. He's an archetypal chaser. You look at him, he's every inch a chaser. He covers a lot of ground, he's got class, he's got speed. He handles Cheltenham. He should have beaten Santini the run before when he fluffed the last in the hands of Tom Scudamore. I'd say great run behind Sam Crow in the Neptune. But he'll definitely go over fences next season. And I think he's around about a 20-1 shot for the RSA next year.
Yeah, Black Op is 20-1 for the RSA. And you mentioned Sam Crow maybe for the Champion Hurdle. Didn't expect to be tipping up Sam Crow for the Champion Hurdle in a Grand National podcast, I must say. But 8-1, that is with Betfair Sportsbook as well. And Betfair Sportsbook are, I should say, best price on Black Op at 13-8, and on Lost in Translation at 16-1. It's been natural me saying that Betfair Sportsbook are the best price in this podcast, because they generally are.
I'd have my serious doubts about Lost in Translation getting the trip. He travelled really well in the Supreme. I watched the race back, funny enough, this morning before I come and did this podcast with you guys, and he just didn't get home. Now, whether he didn't get home because he didn't have the speed, or whether he didn't get home because he wants further, sometimes you get caught between a rock and a hard place looking at a horse and trying to evaluate him. But I think it was stamina rather than speed. And if you compare the Neptune and you compare the Supreme Novices Hurdle, there'd be about 5-6 seconds between Black Op and Lost in Translation on their circuit times.
We so nearly got through it without you two coming to blows, but sadly, Andy, you soured it at the end.
Possibly one for the without Black Op market based on that.
I think
I like this horse. I just think he's interesting, and there are 2 very good horses at the top of this market, but let's see. We'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
I'm gonna, if Mike's listening, I'm gonna stick up for you and hope that on the blind side can give you a good run. Hopefully, the issues that kept him out of Cheltenham have been overcome, and he can show us what a good horse he is, as Mike believes. That brings us to an end. Sorry that the Naps came in the same race, but hopefully you can make a decision between the 13-8 and the 16-1, whatever takes your fancy. Thanks very much to Andy Holding for coming in.
No problem.
Make sure you look out on the Oddschecker site throughout the week for his tips, and actually throughout the season and throughout the year. Consistently in profit, it must be said, and does a great job for us. And Harry Phillips from Betfair as well. As I mentioned, Betfair Sportsbook are best price on so many horses we've spoken about today. We've got the grids in front of us, so make sure you do check them out, and those offers that you mentioned for the Grand National as well. Keep your eye out on the Oddschecker site for lots of content and lots of stuff going on, lots of bonuses, lots of offers, and all the best prices throughout the week and ahead of the Grand National.